Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the Columbus Wired Quick Hit pregame preview. I'm Andy Evans, and here we are at the Horseshoe, baby. Game number 5 of the year for the 4th-ranked undefeated Ohio State Buckeyes, welcoming in a fellow undefeated team in the Maryland Terrapins, who are 5-0 on the year, 2-0 in the Big Ten, and this is the first time ever in the 9-game history that these two teams are going to meet undefeated. Where do we start off? This game is going to be, I tell you what, folks, seriously, I think this is going to be an interesting ball game for these Ohio State Buckeyes, for both sides of the ball, really. Maryland is off to their best start since 2001, when they went 7-0 to start the year, ended up going 10-2 under former head coach Ralph Friedgen. And this marks, of course, the 10th year in the Big Ten for the Terrapins. Half of that time, they've been coached by current guy Mike Locksley, who is in his 5th year. Now, Mike Locksley, not too much success against Ryan Day. He is 0-3, but of course, he's looking to change that today. Last year was close, though. Let's face it, folks, that Maryland team in College Park, granted, still gave the Buckeyes a ride. And in fact, it was very close up until the last couple of minutes of the game. Ohio State had a 36-30 lead, and it took a strip sack by Zach Harrison. In fact, 2 straight sacks on that last drive for Maryland. Zach Harrison got a sack on Talia Tungavailoa, and of course the last sack was a strip. Steel Chambers recovered at the 1, walked into the end zone for essentially the game-winning score. I mean, that was kind of the game. It wasn't necessarily the game-winning score, it was the game-clinching score. Ohio State won 43-30. Last year's 43 points, though, scored by the Buckeyes against Maryland was their lowest amount ever. And the 30 points scored by the Terrapins were their 2nd highest amount ever scored against the Buckeyes. Of course, that being a little bit of a far stretch from the 51 that they scored against Ohio State in that triple overtime thriller in College Park in 2018. But as you see, as you know, the game is here in Columbus, and the average margin of victory for the Buckeyes over the Terrapins here in Ohio Stadium is 44 points a game, an average score of 62-18. Hasn't really been close when the Terrapins visit the Buckeyes here in Columbus. And of the 2 wins that Ryan Day has over Maryland here in Ohio Stadium, 66-17 in 2021, and then his inaugural season in 2019, he beat the Terrapins 73-14. So suffice it to say, Ryan Day has definitely had some luck when it comes to playing the Maryland Terrapins. Now, what are we going to see out of today's matchup, though? That's all in the past. All of that stuff, that's good, great, grand, wonderful. That's in the past. Let's talk about what we're probably going to see out of today's matchup. So what we are going to see are the 2 top offenses in the Big Ten going head-to-head, toe-to-toe, face mask to face mask, crunching here on the gridiron today. Maryland, top offense in the Big Ten at 454 yards a game. The Buckeyes just slightly behind them there in 2nd place at 447 yards per game. And of course, this Maryland offense, we all know who they're led by. We've heard about him all week. And this is an Ohio State team that is very familiar with 5th-year senior quarterback Talia Tungavailoa, because this is now going to be the 3rd time that they faced Talia, last year and in 2021. Now, in 2021, they got after him. 5 sacks in that ball game. Last year, a couple of sacks, including the game-clinching strip sack at the end of the game. This is a different Talia Tungavailoa this year, folks, though. As you know, once again, Maryland being undefeated, Talia Tungavailoa, he's been driving and steering this ship. He has got them in a spot that not a lot of guys can say that they've gotten to in their career in Maryland. I mean, let's put it this way. He's atop, or at least near the top, in many school passing records. And after last week's thumping of Michigan State, where he threw for like 352 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Spartans in a 31-9 win, he now became the only quarterback in Maryland history to eclipse 9,000 yards. And we're talking about a school, okay, that had former NFL quarterbacks in Neil O'Donnell, Frank Reich, and some guy named Boomer Esiason, who, I don't know, played for the Cincinnati Bengals for a few years, made a few Pro Bowls. Yeah, he has now thrown, Talia Tungavailoa has now thrown for more yards than anybody else in Maryland history, including some names like that. This year, leads the Big Ten, 1,464 passing yards, 13 passing touchdowns. He's got 16 total touchdowns responsible for, and he is tied for 7th in the country right now in points responsible for. And Talia Tungavailoa is the only quarterback in the Big Ten that can brag about having four wide receivers with at least 200 yards or more receiving on the season. Only quarterback that can say that. No other quarterback in the Big Ten has at least 4 receivers with that many receiving yards, and all 4 of those guys currently in the top 20 in the conference in receiving yards on the country. So Talia Tungavailoa, he can throw it. And yeah, that was one thing that Denzel Burke said earlier this week in the player interviews, is that Talia Tungavailoa, he has the ability to scramble out of the pocket, makes plays with his feet, and he throws the ball on a rope. So that is the one thing that Ohio State, this defense, a much improved defense, but they are going to have to try and stop, is Talia Tungavailoa's ability to scramble out of the pocket and make plays with his feet. Then again, let's also take with a grain of salt the defenses that Maryland has faced this year. So far, the best defense that they faced last weekend against Michigan State. So far, the Spartans on this season are coming in at 49th on the year. So not terrible, but probably not Michigan State Spartan defense-esque that we're normally used to seeing them play. Now, on the other side of the ball for the Buckeyes, the Buckeye defense that's going to try and take Talia down, or at least hope to contain him. Like I said, a much improved Ohio State defense. I mean, this is a defense right now, 6th in total defense in the country, 2nd scoring defense, only allowing 8.5 points a game. They've only allowed 4 touchdowns, folks, and 2 of those touchdowns have been 2-yard passes against the Buckeyes, which are the longest touchdowns. Of the 4 that have been scored on them, 2 2-yard passes are the longest touchdowns that have been scored against this defense. So, bend, don't break. Yeah, I'd say not really a whole lot of bend to him either. 5th against the pass in the country at 149 yards a game. And, of course, a guy in the secondary that's been leading the way, Denzel Burke. Haven't heard his name the last couple of weeks. He was kind of quiet, but when it comes to a cornerback, that's probably a good thing, right? Because that means opposing quarterbacks are scared to throw their way, probably for good reason. Not only does Burke have that interception against Youngstown State tucked under his belt, he's also he is tied for 2nd in the conference right now with 5 passes defended. That's what I was trying to say. However, getting after the quarterback has been a point of contempt for this Buckeye defense. Yeah, everybody's been asking, where's the sacks? Where are the sacks? Where are the sacks? Kind of like the Wendy's lady. Where's the beef? Hey, OSU defensive line and defense in general, where are the sacks? They've only got 5 on the year. That is next to last in the Big Ten, and only 3 teams in the entire country have less sacks so far this season than Ohio State does. Oof. And here's the thing with Maryland's offensive line. They don't like people to tackle their quarterback. Right now, they have only allowed 3 sacks on the entire season. That is tied for 4th best in the entire country. So, put the 2 together, and you might be kind of scratching your face, your chin, your neck, your head, your hair. I still have some hair to scratch, but I don't want to. I don't want to lose any more than I've already lost. You're probably a little, oh boy, that doesn't sound good. So, if Ohio State is not able to at least get some pressure on Talia Tungavailoa, it could be an interesting day to say the least. However, we talked about Maryland's offense and how good Talia Tungavailoa is. How good has Ohio State been? Well, Kyle McCord, he's been pretty darn good. Over 1,000 passing yards, comes in 6th in the conference. He's got 6 touchdown passes to only 1 interception, which was thrown in the very first game of the season. We all know what he did on that last drive against Notre Dame, right? Seems like Ohio State has found their quarterback. And Maryland's defense, really they've been average in yards allowed this season. They're like smack dab in the middle, 116 yards on the ground, smack dab in the middle of the Big Ten Conference, 116 yards a game on the ground, 211 yards per game through the air. Not bad, not great, just average. However, here's one thing that the Terrapins defense is better than average at doing. That's picking off the quarterback. 8 interceptions on the year. That is tied for first in the Big Ten Conference. So look out for Tarheeb Steele. Look out for Bo Braid, and look out for defensive lineman Donnell Brown, who is rated as the 2nd best defensive end edge rushing, pass rusher. That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say. Donnell Brown, he's good. Look out for him. He's got 2 interceptions on the year as a defensive end. So this team knows how to contain. They know how to get after the quarterback. Well, they know how to put enough pressure on the opposing quarterback to force him to make bad throws. Today, Kyle McCord, he has got to be on it. Are we going to see Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, Chip? What's going on with the backfield? So far, the Buckeyes, they've been adequate running the ball, 149 yards a game. Not quite the rushing attack I think we're all accustomed to seeing for an Ohio State Buckeye team, right? But personally, I think it is what it is. I think what you see is what you get. And me personally, I think that if Ohio State is able to run the ball 120, 125 yards a game, get themselves at least a touchdown or 2, I think they've had a good day running the football, because personally, once again, I just think that what you see is what you get. Ryan Day, he wants to sling the rock. Might be interesting with Marvin Harrison, right? You got Emeka Egbuka, who's 6th in the conference in yards a game. You got tight end Kate Stover, who's 10th. One thing that Kyle McCord can say that no other quarterback in the entire Big Ten can say, and that's having 3 receivers in the top 10 in the conference in receiving yards per game. Of course, number 2, Marvin Harrison at 84 yards a game. He did say this week, as I'm sure most of you heard, that the sprain he suffered against Notre Dame is actually worse than the sprain he toughed out last year. A sprain that really nobody knew about. And he was seen at the Wednesday practice session with kind of like a cast on his leg. Not, like a cast, but he definitely had a supportive plastic cast on his ankle. So he's going to play. He's going to tough it out. How effective is he going to be? Well, we saw him come back in that Notre Dame game and make that crazy diving 19-yard catch on that game-winning drive. So, but I don't know. They're going to need Marvin Harrison throughout the season, right? That's just, you would think. Well, we thought that about Jackson Smith and Jigba last year, and would Jackson Smith and Jigba coulda, woulda, shoulda? I don't know. But C.J. Stroud still had a hell of a year throwing the football without Jackson Smith and Jigba. But you'd like to think that they had Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka last year. Granted, they still got Emeka Egbuka and a guy like Kate Stover who's been coming on. Who would step up for Marvin Harrison Jr.? Still got Julian Fleming. Still got Xavier Johnson. Hey, what about a Carnell Tate? True freshman right out of Chicago. Maybe a Brandon Ennis even. Or possibly a guy like Jaden Ballard. I don't know. We'll see. But let's just hope, Buckeye Nation, that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be good to go. Ultimately, I think this game comes down to 3rd down and 4th down. 3rd down, the Buckeyes have converted 43% of their 3rd downs this year. 42% on 3rd short, which is 4 yards or less. And Maryland, very good at not allowing opposing offenses to convert on 3rd down at only 49% on the year. To put it in perspective, the number 1 team in the nation is allowing 56%. Guess who that is? you know who up north. Yeah, leading the country right now. But still, Maryland, very, very good at not allowing teams to convert on third down. However, if somehow the Buckeyes are forced to go for it on fourth down, they might actually have more success. I mean, the Buckeyes, they're 7 of 11 on the year. They're 7 of 11 on fourth down, and Maryland allows 57% of fourth downs to be converted, and that's actually a pretty high number. Once again, 56% is the leading third down percentage, and Maryland is allowing 57% on fourth down. So it's probably going to come down to short yardage situations. Can the Buckeyes convert on short yardage situations? You know, Ryan Day talked about how tough they were after that Notre Dame win, right? They're tough. Well, let's see how tough they are, because it's going to come down to short yardage situations, and the Buckeyes have got to convert. If not, this is going to be a very fun football game to watch. I think it's going to be fun, period. But ultimately, I do think that Ohio State, I think Tally is going to eat, and he's going to get his, and he's going to make things interesting. And you might even see Maryland kind of jump out to maybe not necessarily an early lead, but they come out and kind of hit Ohio State in the mouth early on, as we've seen. Ohio State, you know, Youngstown State, Western Kentucky, they both kind of came out a little early and kind of, whoa, you know, and then Ohio State recovered, and it was all said and done after that. But I think Talia is going to be impactful early on, but as the game wears along, Ohio State's horse is just a little too big, too tall, too fast, too strong for Maryland to keep up with, and ultimately that's what's going to win Ohio State the football game. So my final score, though, I think this Maryland offense is quite frankly right on par with Notre Dame. I'm giving them 13 points, and I think that it's, once again, the Marvin Harrison injury and just Ohio State not being a very run-happy team, I'm giving them 34. I still think they're favored by, I believe, 20. So I'm actually going to pick them to beat the spread today. That's something I don't necessarily do normally for the Buckeyes, but I am going to pick them to beat the spread today by a final score of 34-13. Well, everybody, that has been the Columbus Wired pre-game preview. I appreciate you all coming along for the ride and checking it out. Until the post-game recap, once again, I'm Andy Evans. Everybody take care and enjoy the game.